What's going on, team? Welcome back along to the crib, your number one place for Super Rugby previews, and we are at it once again for round number 10. We got 6 games to go through, and of course we're bringing back the hot shot guests to have a look at the 6 games for the round as well. So do join me in giving a good warm welcome back to Shane from the glorious land of Australia. Welcome back to the channel, Shane.
Great to be back, Steve. A good day to you and all the viewers. Australia, 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 we love you.
Oh, we're patriotic already, eh? We'll talk about the rugby and see how patriotic we get after that. As always, before we get into the games, this round we'll be having a look at the yellow cards and, of course, the SuperBru predictions. But first things first, yellow cards. Not too much of interesting statistics on yellow cards this week, but we have regained the lead back to the good side of 2019. Last year, after 9 rounds of the competition, we had 42 yellow cards. Going to take a wild stab in the dark. How many are we sitting? We're leading, so we've got more than 42 by a slender margin. How many yellows we picked up this year? 9 rounds, remember, as well. So this is a bit of an indicator as to how many we've actually got this year.
I'll go with 44.
Oh, very close. I thought you were going now, Lee. 1 off, 45. 45 yellow cards so far this season. And you think about that, that's 9 games, I don't know, average 6 to 7 games, per round. That's a lot of yellow cards we've been dishing out. And round 8, 2 weekends ago was an absolute phenomenal round of yellow cards. They got dished out like candy to a kid on Halloween. There were that many cards going around the grounds in the weekend. So we're back up to 45, and we are looking nicely in the lead to smash last year's total as well. And of course still got that 4 red cards in the total there as well, which not last time we're talking about reds now, is it? Moving on though to the SuperBru predicting leaderboards, and Shane, you're not here on the leaderboard, but how are your picks been going heading into this round?
I've got to say, if I get about 3 or 4 a week, I'd be happy to take that.
It's weird, isn't it? Because you start the weekend off and you get that New Zealand derby, that close one, and you might get the Australian game, which is fairly predictable, and then that goes to South Africa, doesn't it? And it just gets thrown out the window. You wake up in the morning, or I do on Sunday morning to go to work, and it's like, what the hell just happened there? How did the Sharks lose to the Jaguars by 50 points? Who saw that coming? So it's a bit of a lottery when you get down to there. On the SuperBru leaderboard, though, the top 3 have remained the same. Nate's is still at the top. 3 crowns won, is still sitting second. 1 whole point behind as well. So, I mean, Nate's is really killing it. But then you got Grant, who's in third, is almost 2 points further back from that as well. So the top 3 are doing very, very nicely. I'm giving myself a pat on the back, and I'm putting on the yellow cap because I'm sitting 5th. Still sitting 5th. From the leader? No, good old Nate. So I'm just under 3 points behind, as you guys will be able to see on the screen here. But I'm pretty happy with how my picks have been going as well. We've been getting some really good results, picking some of those 50-50s as well in Africa have made a bit of a difference. The rest of the guys who turn up on the channel, Paul from Driving Wall didn't have a great week. He went down 2 places, down to 22nd, so I'll make sure that I rub that into him over the week. And Malcolm _ DSO1. I'm pretty sure we know Malcolm from Twitter. You've probably seen him on there as well, Jane. He's had a great week, picking up this fella, the yellow cap, and up 17 spots, so well done to him. Pretty sure he's a pretty big Crusaders fan, if it's the guy I'm thinking about. So good work from him, picking up that yellow cap. Brett's still struggling. Malcolm went up 12, Brett's gone down 12, so I'm really hoping to get Brett back on the show in the next couple of weeks as well, so we can give him shit about those picks. Taz, another one, really struggling. These guys are struggling, so they suffered the curse. Shane, you're lucky you don't have to suffer the curse of bad picks after the show. These guys are really suffering after that. Taz led back in round 2. He was number 1. Now he's 44th. So not good. And we've got old Ryan's down there as well. He's struggling away, the big blues man. And he's down on 47. But he's going up. And the only way is up when you're down that low as well. But here we go. Well done to Nate. He still sits at the top. And he'll be hoping that he can stay there for the rest of season 2. I do bet. But we'll move swiftly on to game number 1 of the weekend. It kicks off Friday night with the Chiefs versus the Lions. Now, there's a lot happened in this match. We'll talk about the Lions in a second because that's what I think the big talking points are there. But the Chiefs I mean, since that tour, this team has completely changed around their forms, haven't it? But of course, they do have this big loss of Damien McKenzie out for, 9 months or saying he's gone for a long, long time. The team looked alright without him, but they made quite a number of changes. Debrasini starting this week at fullback, and Marty McKenzie, of course, is starting again. He's going to be the mainstay now, the number 10 jumper. Do you think the loss of McKenzie in this side is going to take a huge blow to them, or do you think they can adapt and move on with the quality? They do have a lot of quality there already in that Chiefs side.
Well, I think Damien is central to how the way they play, and when they moved him back to fullback from 10, he started to click into some gears. So big out, 9 months on the sideline, I believe it is, if I was reading correctly the other day. Marty, he played pretty well a few weeks ago when they put him up there. So, big test for the Chiefs. Obviously, is Retallick playing, or they're resting him for this one?
He is missing. He is missing. So second row will be Mitch Brown and Tyler Ardron, the Canadians, starting together. So no Retallick in there at all for the Chiefs.
Well, here's a test of the Chiefs' depth. Now, if I remember correctly, in 2016 when these sides both played in Hamilton, it was 36-32 to the Lions. So they're not. They can pull off an upset, but they're not the Lions of 2 or 3 years ago. And so you'd hope, Chiefs fans, that they can keep the momentum rolling on. And the Lions, they're desperate for a win or two to start picking themselves up in that conference. So after 2 really bad weeks for them, I've got to say, they certainly were a lot better in Canberra than they were the week before against the Sharks. But, look, I'm intrigued. I am going to go with the Chiefs, probably against some of my better judgment, but I'll go the Chiefs by 6.
Well, you did right. My point about the Lions was the last time that they met in Hamilton was in 2016, and you're right, it was 36-32. Very good memory. That's exceptional to remember that. So, I mean, you've got that on their side, but you've got to look at it and say, that is a peak Lions side. And I don't think we've got that peak Lions side right now. They're on the bottom of the South African leaderboard. That is a surprise in its own. They struggled to really put away, well, they lost them ultimately, the Brumbies last weekend, but it's not a great Brumbies side, is it, at all? And then all the changes they got, a huge amount of changes. No Marks, no Yankees, Warren Whiteley and Quagga Smith return, which is great for them. A lot of changes as well. They're moving Mahuza to fullback. Skosan's coming back to the wing. They've got a whole new front row starting on their team this week as well. So big question marks whether that can stand up, but to put in Lombard, who they got starting at 10, is a big risk against the Chiefs like this. The days of that 36-32 victory back in 2016, a bit of a distant memory now for the Lions, do you think?
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, it was the Chiefs got within 5 metres of the line and knocked on, and the Lions got a free kick out of the scrum and booted it out. So the Lions had a big lead and nearly got run down in the second half, if my memory serves me correctly about that game. And so they had a very good side back then, and they managed to pull it off somehow in the end, because the Chiefs had the momentum towards the end of that game. So I think it's a distant memory. I would have loved to have seen Retallick play in this one. I think he would have also given the Chiefs that hard edge that he's been giving them over the last few weeks in the forwards, with D-Mac out. But I think that in terms, the Chiefs don't always have the greatest depth. But in terms of the depth here in this game, they'll have a greater depth than the Lions. So I think that'll just see them have the advantage in this one.
I mean, the Chiefs are always the team that seem to be always having their depth tested, aren't they? And that, they're never a team that's coming out with their best 15 ever, because they've always got 16 guys sitting in the injury ward down the local hospital. They seem just always be getting hammered, don't they? Which is unfortunate. But yeah, I do think the back row that the Lions have picked up, the return of Quagga Smith, Brink's been pretty good. Whiteley, of course, is massive for them, and that's going to come up against Jacobson, Boucher, and Seru, which that is going to be a key matchup for these two sides. I'm going with you, though. I'm going Chiefs. I'm just going Chiefs. I think probably for me that's quite a big margin this season. Chiefs by 8. The season may come to the tour, I should say, for the Lions is not going to plan at all, and they're a bit behind the 8 ball. I think the Chiefs definitely resurgent. Should take them away, I think, comfortably enough in the end. And home ground advantage always tells. So Chiefs as well, just smaller margin.
Yeah, I'm going to go by 6. I just think that they'll have just enough there. I can't tell you what sort of game it will be tactically. I hope the Chiefs will just keep putting that momentum with their angle running and their line breaks and things like that. And the Lions will have to not just play forward domination, they'll have to go to their backs as well. So with Quagga Smith and Warren Whiteley back at 8, that's a big inclusion. So hope it's close, but I'll go Chiefs by 6.
Just by 6. Nice close one to start us off. Moving on, second game of the weekend. We're off to see the Sunwolves. Now this, it is Prince Chichibu Stadium, Memorial Stadium. Get it right, the full title of the stadium. They're up against the Hurricanes, who are hitting the tracks. The Sunwolves back at home for round 10. But last time we seen them was in round 8, and they were, I'd say, disappointing. From the standard they've kind of set themselves this season, they weren't at their best there, but still very, very entertaining side. And I think I'm expecting from this game is to be very open, very expansive, and something that would complement the way that they play versus the way that the Hurricanes play. Are you expecting either of these sides to pull it back a bit, or will she be all open slather for both backlines especially?
There's going to be no shots for 3. There's going to be a lot of kicking for touch if you get the penalty inside the half. And I'm actually really excited about this game because there's going to be lots of attacking rugby. And I think I'm more excited because the Hurricanes will be playing a lot of that attacking rugby. So will the Sunwolves. But hopefully, I haven't seen the team lists for the Hurricanes this week. So hopefully they're playing some of their decent players, to do that, because this game wasn't a bad game last year. It was about 41 or 42-15 to the Hurricanes. And it was only 24-15 with about 15 to play. So it was just a tiring Sunwolves pack, and the Hurricanes ran over in the end. But, this game has seen a lot of points scored. It's seen a lot of good attacking rugby. I want to see a lot of attacking rugby, particularly from the Hurricanes. I want to see them really put a challenge out there in that New Zealand conference and be an alternative to the Crusaders, because I really enjoy watching the Hurricanes play.
So interesting. You speak of another very well taken memory you've got there, 43-15. Jesus, how do you remember all these matches from so long ago? Last year, that was the Hurricanes over the Sunwolves. The only other time they've met was 83-17 thrashing, and that was an away match for the Hurricanes as well. So definitely history on their side. We've seen history counts for nothing this season. The Sunwolves are a different side from what we've seen in the past. You spoke a bit about the table, which is what I kind of want to touch on a little bit, about the Hurricanes being that option, competing. The Crusaders are 11 points in front of second place Hurricanes. 11 points. They do have a match in hand, though, the Hurricanes, which could go on their side. If they pick up a 5-pointer here, that's going to give them that halfway to getting back to the Crusaders. But it's amazing how a few weeks ago these sides neck and neck on the table, and they were side by side. It was a bit like, the Hurricanes could do something here, and the Crusaders have just destroyed and blowing out a massive lead. I couldn't believe that when I saw it, how far away they actually are. And you'd expect they're going to take these Sunwolves away, but that lead in the table was just phenomenal for me. I couldn't believe that they had done so well there, the Crusaders. And the Hurricanes, the Blues are only 3 points behind them. So that really shows you how the New Zealand Conference has been. You spoke a bit about the side. It's a good-looking side for the Hurricanes, but there's no Mr. Barretts at all. They are completely gone from the 23 altogether. So they've got Fletcher Smith starting at 10 instead. They've got Lamb and Houston on the wings, Lamapa and Proctor in the midfield. And it's a good pack, though. They've got no Adi Salvia in there, but they've still got Via Fafita playing back in the back row, where he's a bit more impactful. And a decent forward pack. But big names missing, though. No Dane Coles as well. But they've got good depth there. Riccatelli coming in. How many games he played recently to be right up there as well. So a lot of guys missing. Not their strongest side at all. But they'll be expecting to thrash these Sunwolves. Have you got it going that way?
Yeah, I do. Though it does anger me. Sorry, NZRU. I would have loved to have seen the Barrett boys playing this one. For the sake of attacking rugby and good rugby. So they will not be happy unless they come out with a bonus point victory here. So I'll go 15 plus.
Very similar to my pick. I'm going Hurricanes by 14. That team does give you a little bit of a opportunity for an upset, doesn't it, for the Sunwolves? We know what they're like, these Sunwolves. They get their tails up, they get a good little start. This game takes a very, very different turn. And without those impact guys that can put their foot down and say, not today, I'm talking Savia, especially in Bowden Barrett, those guys can halt a game's flow and turn it around. They're missing. Perenara's there. He's a guy that can, obviously with his leadership and ability, can dictate a game. But he's got a lot of pressure on him to perform in this back line, which is good, but could easily be taken back a bit by a strong Sunwolves performance. So I'm going Canes by 14. Back at home as well, but I think the Canes will get this one done. Good attacking performance from them. Should see some exciting rugby. I'm a bit like you. I'm hoping for that could be a good, exciting, open, free-flowing matchup. We'll move on over to South Africa, and here we go. It starts there, doesn't it? The Sharks are up against the Reds, and the Sharks... Well, 2 weeks ago, we were saying, wow, how did they thrash the Lions? And then last weekend, we're going, how did they get thrashed by the Jaguares? What the hell happened? How do you pick South African games? The Sharks have gone from great to woeful in the space of 7 days. You can't pick on form. You can't pick on the teams they select. You can't do anything except hope that you've clicked the right button, because it's a real 50-50 against or with these South African sides. Who's going to turn up?
Well, you'd hope, Sharks fans, for not the logo, but the actual shark circling. You would hope that they're getting off the Great Australian Bite and into it. I mean, they're just 1 week glorious rugby, the next week awful rugby. Now, what is going on in that conference, I don't know. I think teams are starting to get a bit more competitive and pick themselves up, but particularly for Springboks and Argentinian selections and those sort of things. So we're seeing that competitive flow, and that's great. It's a hard conference to pick, but it's great rugby to watch. Now, with this game, they will want to win this game and then prove a point from their pathetic performance last week. So, they got a good mobile forward pack that can really damage at the breakdown time. They got great backs, and they that can cause a lot of damage on the scoreboard. The Reds, they're a young team, but we can't keep using the young team thing anymore, because they've had that experience. A lot of players are now in that 20, 30, 40 Super Rugby game mould. Um, they can't keep relying on Samu Karevi to play lone hands either. People have got to step up. They've got to find a 10. Um, I'm critical of my side more than I am other Super Rugby sides because the Reds, while they have learned a lot, they have still got a lot to learn. And, it's a matter of eventually getting some results on the board before fans get a little bit bored. So, I'm expecting the Sharks to probably thrash the Reds. I'm going to go by 12.
Interesting. Yeah, the Reds have not been very impressive on tour, have they? They've been
No.
pretty average, and you've spoken about already. Karevi is the man, and I mean, I look at these two sides and their recent performances, and Karevi, he's been the winner. He's been strong, really, really good. I look at the Sharks and I say Cohen Bosch has been the lone Shark in that side as well. He's been fantastic. Even last weekend when they got thrashed by 50, Cohen Bosch was still outstanding, and he still made some fantastic plays. But they're both in the same camp of their team not helping out. They're not getting that full support from their side, which has costed them. So this could be an interesting one, whether it goes really one-sided or we actually have a close match. Hopefully it won't be that really poor close match where teams can't catch the ball and it's woeful rugby because they're both so bad, you know what I mean? Hopefully we get a good match where they're both actually competitively good. Because you look at history as well with this, the Reds haven't beaten, well, last time they were beating them in the South Africa was 2004 in the Super 12. How long has it been since we called it that? When it was 5 points to 6 was the final score. So there we go. History's not on the Reds side at all, and now they've got to really step it up and produce something. They haven't changed the team too much either, so they'll be hoping those guys can redo the job. You going Sharks by 12? I'm going very similar to you. Sharks by 9 for me. Home ground advantage, but it just depends which Shark side turn up for me, and if they, how well they can gel. I mean, because they could go poor. The Reds could get a bit passionate, and they are a decent enough side. That pack, definitely, if they get the incentive there, they could be a bit of a troublesome one for the Sharks. So we'll see how that goes. Interesting, a very interesting game. I'll leave that there because you could dissect that a lot with the players you've picked and how that one's going to go, but you just never know. So we'll move on. Both going for the Sharks. Agreeance there between the two of us. We'll move on to our next New Zealand match Saturday night. The Highlanders are up against the Blues, and most importantly is I will be there supporting my Highlanders out there. Yes, we will be trudging on up there on Friday to watch the game. So if you're going to be at the Highlanders game, keep an eye out somewhere in the stadium. I'll be there. Who knows where, but I will be there. So this is a big match, a great match to go see with the way the Blues have been playing as well, because both sides need to win this one. And their form recently contrasting overall until last week, where they both suffered losses. I mean, the Highlanders, the Crusaders, you'd almost excuse that. But the Blues have been really good building up to this point. The Highlanders started well and have faded away. So this is the ultimate point now they need to turn around, especially with the Blues winning that last match up in Eden Park as well. The Blues haven't beaten the Highlanders at home since 2011, and they can't call it a World Cup year glory either because they lost to them in 2015. What's your take on this? Do you see this one going anywhere other than a big 50-50, guess, I guess?
Both sides play a very similar style of game. A very hard, working forwards game. And it can be at times a bit scrappy, but you've got some really great backs that can finish off opportunities, even in scrappiness. And I thought the derby a few weeks ago was a very good derby, and the Blues stood up. They won their first New Zealand derby in 3 years. I think it was, what was it, 33-26, I think
close.
it was. And it was 33-31 in round 1 2016, where these two sides met, and the Blues had their previous derby win. They'll be up for this. the Blues will be up for this. They've played some really good rugby, even in their loss last week. The Highlanders, I'm sure, will be up for this as well. They want to, prove a point after the Crusaders game. And, Dunedin, get behind Steve, get up Baldwin Street, the world's steepest street, have a caramello, hot chocolate, Cadbury factory, then get down to the rugby. And sing lots of songs with all the great music that I can hear on the television screen. It seems like a real party atmosphere. I, again, haven't seen the team sheets for these two sides. I'm hoping that there's some real quality that has been, that will be playing and not rested, because I don't like this rested thing. I like watching quality games of rugby. Look, I think the home ground advantage this time in Dunedin will help the Highlanders. I think the Blues will turn up. I think it'll be a game of forwards with backs to finish off. I'm going to go the Highlanders by a solitary point.
God, I couldn't agree more with your statements. I think it's going to be an absolute, just so close between these two sides. The Blues, though, they've been great. I mean, you look at the table, they're on 20 points. They are actually doing it. I mean, it's hard to believe they had a good run. You think, yeah, okay, it's the Blues that have their little run. It's going to fall over sooner or later. They are scorching it. And that game versus the Chiefs last weekend was phenomenal. One of the better games I've seen, not only this season, but for a long, long time. That the quality, just the commitment, I guess you call it, just the way they played, so very, very good. So I'm hoping we get more of the same from that. You're right, no, the teams haven't been named for these last three games, so we're going a bit blind on these ones, how well they picked them. But I don't think the Highlanders and the Blues are sides that really have so many All Blacks they need to rest them. Of course, they had that earlier stage with the Smiths, Ben Smith and Aaron Smith. They had to pop them out in those first few rounds. But I think pretty much now they are good to go. Pretty much throughout. They'll be wanting them to be good to go as well, because they need those guys. They are core for them as well. And the Blues, very interesting to see whether they'll be doing that same tactic they've done in recent weeks of playing their better forwards off the bench and giving them the 30-35 minutes blast at the end, and hoping that their bench guys that normally would be on the bench to start to kind of keep them in the game. That has proved very effective. I've been surprised how well that's worked when they can stay in a match with those guys, and then the bench guys come on and they put that pressure on, and it's worked wonders for the Blues. So it's going to be really tight, going to be really close. I'm pretty excited to be able to go see this game, because it's sure to be a cracker. If you said at the start of the season, I would have been like, oh, the Blues, yuck. I'll pass. But now, the way they're playing should be a cracker. I'm agreeing again with what you've got. I've got them by just 2 points, the Highlanders, to get the job done, because I just don't want to be disappointed. So, Highlanders get out there and do the job, because we need these points. Only on 14, bottom of the table. Need to pick up the win here against the Blues. And we can't have the Blues having two, Derby matches, wins against the Highlanders as well. That would be terrible. I'll never hear the end of it. But there we go. We're both going Highlanders, slender margin. And we'll move on to your side of the Tasman for the Waratahs versus the Rebels. I'm picking this to be a similar situation as well. Waratahs, I mean, this side is in turmoil, isn't it? With all the surrounding issues and problems that they got going on with that side, it's got a mess with the mental state of this team. And surely, I'm expecting this is going to have a big effect to their build-up. Going into this game, they're not going to be 100% there in the top 2 inches.
Well, the Waratahs, when it comes to derbies, they like to go all-out attack and do the Waratah thing. So I'm sure there'll be a noticeable absence somewhere in the back line. Without mentioning names, I think that the Rebels, they want to, again, it's about proving a point from last week. The Rebels were shocking against the Stormers. They'll have more to prove this week. The Waratahs have come off the bye. They've come back from Auckland. They had a narrow loss. They had a narrow loss before that to the Sunwolves. They'll want to prove a point too. What better way to do it in an Australian derby where everybody's going to be there, including the kangaroos, the emus, the snakes. Everyone's going to be excited. This game, now I want to point out, Steve, and I pointed it out when we did the Australian Conference preview. This is the boogeyman side for the Rebels. It's like Bart, Homer, a chainsaw, and hockey mask. The Rebels get scared, you know? They get very, very scared of the Waratahs. They have dropped this game. They have even led by huge margins and dropped this game in years past. So, you know, with Cooper there, he hasn't been on Wallaby duties for almost 2 years, so they don't need to rest him. And I'm sure that they'll at least play Genia for this one, being the key Australian derby this year for them. They need to win this to put a stranglehold on that Aussie conference halfway through the year, mate. You know, I'm expecting attacking rugby all the way around with very limited opportunities to take threes. They'll want to go to the sideline. They'll want to go, the Waratahs will want to play expansive, as will the Rebels. So, you know, exciting times if you're an Australian like me, because this is our night after 7:30 our time. Look, I'm going to go the Tars by 1.
Ooh.
I think that it's that boogeyman, Homer Simpson, chainsaw and hockey mask effect that seems to come over the Rebels in all of these derbies.
It's interesting you talked about the recent meetings as well, because the Waratahs been pumping it out on social media the last time these two sides met. And, of course, they won that one 31-26 last year. But they've had the run. And, I mean, the Rebels haven't been the Rebels we know now for very long, you know, apart from this season, obviously. But still, you mentioned all those times, the Waratahs have pumped them pretty convincingly in the end. There's a few 50s the last couple before that in 2018 and 17. So there's a lot on their side to get this job done. What I think could make the difference here, and I'm interested to what you think about how the Rebels camp has been over this last week, because we talked a little bit about it on the review that we do on Paul's show on Monday. Genia and Cooper are very clearly aggravated. You go as far as saying they were angry. They were not happy chappies. They were unhappy pigeons for sure. They would have gone to training on Monday morning, and I think the coach would not have been there. Something like that would have gone down, because I think Cooper and Genia would have gone there and said, that shit wasn't good enough. That's not happening again. You think something would have happened like that? I think those guys, they're the leaders, you know? Those are the guys, alongside others, sure, in that team, they definitely stand up, but those guys definitely run that ship. Something like that happened. Do you think that would have a positive effect on the side to have those guys stand up and demand more from that Rebels team, who definitely have the talent, but they're not portraying it on the field, especially against that Stormers team?
Well, they're probably hoping Matt Tamur gets straight on and doesn't come in May, comes a month early to add to that side, which is absolutely scary at the end of the season. Watch out. I would say that they went back into camp and said, that's crap. And they will have, I don't know what they will have done, but I'm sure it would have been something like hill sprints first, times 3, hills back down the hill and back training. And then if you make one mistake, you're back up the hill doing hill sprints. That's what they should have done. That's what we do at our local rugby league club if you make one mistake. So, mate, you know, Cooper and Genia are the 2 stars in this side. There's a lot of other stars too. You know, you want Coleman to produce the big hits and get stuck in defence and in the mauls, which he's so good at. You want young fellas like Hardwick to Say I'm a Wallaby of the future, and Matt Philp, who just drives the ball forward with every time he gets, Izzy Nazarani as well. They've got a great forward pack. They've got great backs. The inconsistent crap that came up against the Stormers must never, ever be repeated again. And, you've got the Waratahs now. Go out and beat them. Go out and prove a point, because I'm sure that Australians want to see something better than what they saw last Friday night when they turned on their television screens.
I think, building on what you said there, Guinea and Cooper, it stops with them. Those guys are like the coaches on the field. Yes, they're great players, they're very good players, they're talented players, we know that, but they're responsible almost for that team. It's kind of, when they were recruited to that side, it wouldn't have been just like, come play for the Rebels, it will be good fun. It would have been like, we want this guy, and unless you've got this structure, unless you've got this, we want it this way, we want it built around this. They would have had stipulations, and it wouldn't be until they're happy with saying, this is our list of 30 men that we're going to have playing alongside you, that they were gone, okay, we'll take that. And now they're not, they're producing like that. Yeah, and that's going to fall on them, I think, a lot of the way. So I think that's really why they were so annoyed about it, because a lot of it does stop with them, and there's a lot of experienced guys in there as well that need to pick it up, but they just were not on the mark, and it's a squad game, it's a team game, but those guys definitely are the ones to stop the buck. It stops with them, and they'll be, I think, much like you said, up the hills, back down, get on it, boys, up you go again. I'm going complete opposite of you. I'm going to say margin by 1, but I'm going with the Rebels by a whisker. It's going to be, hopefully, like we talked about the other games, high quality but close. We don't want to see that crap from both sides. That is the games we don't want to see, and we've seen a few too many of them from Australian sides as well. Just that basic sort of stuff. Close games, but it's not much fun when a team gets into 22 and knocks on, the other team kicks it away, builds up, knocks on. That's all we're going to see. We're going to see attacking rugby. We're going to see great defence, counteracting each other. Hopefully we get that from the Waratahs and the Rebels this weekend as well. Rebels by 1, though. That's the pick of champions. Moving on to our final game of the weekend. It is the Stormers versus the Brumbies. And I'm sorry, Brumbies fans, this is the worst time you want to be going to see the Stormers over in South Africa, because they are high on confidence, they are happy to be home, and they just destroyed your conference leaders in their own home backyard. Everything here points towards a South African side storming to an impressive victory. But can we trust the South African sure thing?
Well, look, the Brumbies obviously had that win against the Lions, and the Stormers came out with a great deal of confidence out of Melbourne. They didn't have, in their middle games, the second and third games, they didn't play as well as, you'd like to see them play. They came out with a bonus point loss against the Hurricanes, which is considered, a reasonable effort for what it was worth, and then that great win at the end at Melbourne. So they will go back to Cape Town after that win in Melbourne with a great deal of confidence that they can build on this. Now, the Brumbies, they've been so inconsistent that it's really disappointing. Great one week, bad the next. Maybe even the second week after that. It's not, horses for courses. I mean,
oh dear.
You go into South Africa on a tour, and you have a team that you're playing in Cape Town, Newlands, who's just come back off a tour on a great high with a really good win against the Rebels. So here's what you do. You play a certain style of game that is attractive enough to win that game. Now, it seems to me that the old school way the Brumbies play is suited to this sort of environment at Cape Town, where you work hard, you get them defending, and then you finish it off with your backs. Now, the Stormers will play their mobile game, and when they're on song, they sing a mighty fine song. So I'm expecting a Stormers victory. I'm expecting it to be relatively close because I think Brumbies will turn up. But yeah, I'll take the Stormers by 5.
Oh, always one game that you read exactly what I've written down. On the Brumbies, though, it's the first time since 2016 they've actually played the Stormers. Well, that's actually the first time they've played them regardless of anywhere. So that's quite some time. That's 3 years since these sides have last met. The Brumbies on tour, though, which is really what I'm going for, only got 2 matches on their tour before they return home, which I find quite interesting. Stormers and then the Jaguares as well, which will be en route to going back to Australia. Are you expecting to have a good tour? Do you think the side's good enough to challenge those 2 sides? You're picking a Stormers win, a close one as well. Do you think they'll challenge the Jaguares at home?
Well, they did win the last time they were in Argentina, 39-15. And on the Stormers front, they did beat the Stormers to go into the semi-finals in 2015 as well. So, look, it depends on what Brumbies side is going to turn up so far this year. Brumbies actually tour a lot better than some of the Australian sides in South Africa and Argentina. So I'm expecting the Brumbies to be competitive. The Jaguares, they've played, some good rugby, particularly in their last couple of games. They nearly beat the Chiefs. They took the cleaners to the Sharks. So it's going to be difficult, particularly with the home crowd and the way that the Argentinian sides play rugby. So the Brumbies will have a lot of work to do, but I think they'll be competitive in both their games.
And that's all you can really ask for. I'm going exactly the same as you. Stormers by 5. That was my pick as well. So we're in agreement on all but one. I hope that holds good stead for a good weekend of picks for Super Rugby on SuperBru this weekend. Of course, we talked a little bit about the Jaguares there, but the Bulls, along with the Jaguares and the Crusaders, are on the bye this weekend, so that's why we haven't talked about those guys. 6-game weekends are quite nice. I quite like them, nice and short to go through. But that is, of course, us for the round of number 10. Thank you everyone for joining in and having a little bit of a chat about the Super Rugby weekend. Leave your thoughts in the comments below too if you think anything else to what we've talked about here today. Shane, thanks always for joining us, sir.
Okay.
Great pleasure as always. Want to come and say hi to you, see where you are. Where can they find you and have a chat?
I'll be at Schoolermate, SCOOLM8 on Twitter, and come have a yarn and have a happy and safe Easter, everybody.
There's, of course, Easter weekend as well, isn't it? Plenty of chocolate for everyone out there melting in the sun. As always, thanks for checking out the channel. Thanks for sticking around and saying hi. I'll see you all next week for round 11, as always. Have a good long weekend, everyone, and we'll see you all next week for round 11. Until then, take care.